Well, congratulations with this new series that I like how it's different because it kind of accommodates more to the family, all the people around the John Wayne Gacy story.
Yeah, yeah, we that was the mission statement for Patrick McManus, the creator of the show, was that he was going to focus on the stories of these victims. And it's very easy to get lost in the sensationalism of the horrific behavior of the person who commits these crimes. And then it's easy to forget that there were, 33 young men buried under his house, and each one of those people had family and a mother and a father and people who cared about them. And even harder to remember that there are still, a handful of those victims who are unidentified to this day, and who deserve the same type of remembrance and love.
James, you also play, the three of you play a real life character, but for you, James, as a detective who's been very, I don't know if you, very deep in a person that was very uh, focused on this because even the real Joe was a co-writer of one of the novels, the books that covered Gacy. So how was it for you to prepare for your role?
Yeah, I think he wrote a book called The Chicago Killer, and Joe had passed away years ago, so it wasn't a situation where I was trying to contact his family, but he narrated the audiobook himself. So that book was something that I could listen to over and over again, and it was kind of a daily thing, just to get into his rhythm and his tone. Um, so there was a lot of there was a lot of information for all of us, and we keep talking about this. What is that thing of playing a real person and compared to what do you do when you show up to work? And I think everyone approaches it differently, and it it's a lot of that stuff gets thrown away when the cameras start rolling. It's a different thing. You prepare as much as you can. You show up to work, and then now it's something else happens,
Michael, we get to see you in the series as trying to defend as much as possible because he has a lot in line, reputation and the big case had been looking for.
Yes, yes. Fair to say that I think Sam also took Gacy on under somewhat false pretenses. He didn't really know what he was stepping into. But then once he is confessed to, there is that ethical dilemma that he has. But at the core of who Sam is, he was a Marine. Um, he was, he worked in the justice system his whole life, and he was starting his own private practice. He was also starting his own private practice in as as a personal injury attorney. He did not want to be a criminal lawyer. That's true based on his book. Um, and yet he also had personal ambitions, and he knew that this case, in terms of notoriety, would be very big for him and big for his family, and he um that gray area, but and yet there's still the truth that he was very emotionally affected by Gacy and his crimes, and he had to deal with this person who was also very difficult to represent because he was in many ways like a petulant child, and made it he drew a map for the police, and make it didn't make it easier on himself, so to speak. So there were a lot of challenges for Sam, but I think at the core of it, what makes him an interesting character is he's very affected by Gacy and the crimes, and as a father himself, he felt very strongly for those boys and for their families, and yet he also believed Gacy deserved a defense.
Yes, in this series we actually get to see more of like how difficult as a person he was and had those moments. Um, And Chris, going back to you, you played the prosecutor that not too long ago. I mean, he just passed away 2022.
Yeah, I mean, on top of the research that we were afforded by production, there was the documentary that came out about Gacy that had interviews with all of these men, including Kunkel. And Kunkel, I think, is an interesting figure in this story. He is a man who seems to be handed a open and shut case and still has to fight, you know, oftentimes with his friend Sam Amaranti, uh, to make sure that this case is handled with the thoroughness it deserves, so that the man receives the punishment that he deserves. Um, and there was a clear, obsession that Kunkel had uh, with punishing this man, rightly so. But yeah, there were several interview clips from that documentary that I used to kind of shape the way that I portrayed the character in the show.
Now, whoever wants to answer this, but what do you think is it about these individuals that commit all these crimes, but yet we're so curious and we invest in learning and knowing? Because there are so many documentaries on John. One of them mentioned, the one on Peacock. Um, but we're so drawn and curious. Why do you feel it is?
I think we are all fascinated by the shadow of the human condition, um, because we all have our own. Obviously, very few of us, thank God, have a shadow as dark and as large as John Wayne Gacy's. You know, we all we're all part of the same human race, right? And so when one of us goes this far off the rails, it is concerning, to say the least. And for myself, I want to know what went wrong. I want to know how it can be avoided. I want to know how I can recognize it in the future. I want to know what I can do to help, and you think about a time, when a man can get away with murdering 33 or more people. So how does a person do that? And how does a system allow them to get away with it for as long as they did? So I think that's where a lot of the interest.
For me, for John Wayne Gacy, it's always like curious to know how it is that he kept his secret for so long
Yeah.
and covering it, and it's just that curiosity of how someone's brain can work so brilliant in that aspect.
That I think that's part of what I learned about Gacy upon learning about him and researching. I didn't know a lot about Gacy other than that he was the clown. That's all I knew. And then I watched my first interview with him, and to your shock and to your dismay, you find a seemingly normal guy. Um, a middle working class guy from the suburbs of Chicago who kind of talks in this folksy accent, who's kind of funny, who's not in the least bit seemingly evil. And that mundanity, that commonplaceness of him made his horrific crimes all the scarier because this person is among you. It's not they're not seemingly somebody with a dark side. So that dichotomy, that Jekyll and Hyde nature of him is with Gacy specifically what makes him so it makes it so unsettling.
With the series, I'm learning more about his charisma. His charisma, he knew how to manipulate people with it. Um, so now I'm like, wow, whenever I see some extra charisma, personality, now I'm gonna question it. No offense, but it just makes you very cautious.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, that's how I felt when I met Badge.
You found me out, dude.
Too much charisma. I was
like
like,
way too much, man.
this guy can't be this handsome and this charismatic and not be up to something.
Is it the mustache?
It's always the mustache. First of all, it's always the
It
mustache.
doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Listen.
Well, thank you all for your time. Congratulations. And Michael, it was good to talk to you again. We spoke in April for Sacramento.
He's
Oh.
muted, so I will say he appreciates it, and keep telling everyone about that movie. It's one of the best movies I've seen in a long time.
Yes, I
Really
thank
good
you.
movie.
And great talking to you again.
You guys take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.